During the school trip, Toka and his teammates are summoned to another world. However, Toka was the only one with the lowest rank, E rank, and extremely low status compared to his classmates. Thus, the former mob character and abandoned hero will absolutely become the strongest devil as he advances and strikes back. Mimori Toka is staring at what is probably inevitable doom for him. He runs away from danger, but the monster is in pursuit. Lots of thoughts race through his mind, but none more than the obvious question. How exactly did he end up here? He remembers vividly. Who would forget the day that his class was summoned by the goddess Visis? She had previously summoned the class to a whole new world. She calls them chosen beings and says they are chosen for the task because they are heroes. But then, before she lets them do the task, she carries out a little task of her own. Based on the results of the aptitude test she made the class take, one person must be eliminated. Mimori Toka is the one who is called out. He's to be disposed of immediately. Toka barely has time to react before the goddess explains further. She tells them that they were summoned to the other world to defeat the demon lord. They needed to take the test so they could determine who is strong enough. There are 6 ranks available from highest to lowest: S rank, A rank, B rank, C rank, D rank, and E rank. The whole class took the aptitude test, but Toka is the only one with an E rank result. The goddess concludes that he would probably slow the higher ranked heroes down, and that's why she chose to get rid of him. Desperately, Toka pleads with the goddess for mercy. While he understands that he's never been the major character in a play, he still argues that disposing of him would be a terrible decision. He also points out that disposing of him would mean she would dispose of anyone the moment they aren't needed anymore. He expects that this would rile up his classmates and that they would argue in his favor. If only it were that easy. Toka's classmates are indifferent to what the goddess said. After all, they're not E-ranked warriors and it doesn't affect them. Toka just about loses all hope before someone finally comes to his rescue. Ayaka Sogo, an S-rank hero. Sogo argues that he shouldn't be disposed of as he never decided to become an E-rank hero. Toka is comfortable thinking everyone would surely be on his side now. It's a shocker when Visis sends the class leader flying with one move and then accuses Toka of affecting an S-rank warrior's mind. And just like that, the entire class begins to reject and make fun of Toka. It's almost as if they weren't classmates some time ago. The ruthless goddess rounds Toka up and is about to dispose of him. She asks for his last words. Toka, after a moment of anguish, defiantly raises his middle finger at the goddess, and so she disposes of him. Sometime later, Toka wakes up in what seems like a cave. He's still alive but is confused about what to do. Then he recalls the goddess talking about skills. She mentioned that everyone was given skills the moment they came in. He opens the status window to check his skills. Unfortunately, he doesn't realize the danger just behind him. When he sees the monster, he immediately runs as fast as his legs can allow. The initial plan is to locate others that were disposed of and form a group with them. He gives up on his plans when he notices the skeletons lying around. So, he was put here to die? He checks the status window to see if any skill can save him from death. His current skills are sleep, paralysis, and poison. These are all level 1 skills, no wonder he was thrown away. As the monster approaches, he looks away and attempts a last gasp attack, using paralysis. It works as the monster is rooted to the spot. His skills don't seem so bad now. He even uses poison, which also works on the monster. After 1 hour under the poison, the monster dies. Taking the skeleton's coat, Toka decides to get stronger and explore this new world. After all, he has a point to prove and a certain goddess to take revenge on. Time passes, and the revenge-seeking Toka finally starts to get the hang of the labyrinth. With his paralysis skill, he doesn't even have to come up close to the enemy. The only problem is that when they attack in numbers. Whether in singles or multiples though, Toka manages to defeat every monster that crosses his path. As for his abilities, he has successfully analyzed each of them and found a few things. Paralysis and sleep only last 1 hour, poison lasts till death, and the range of using these abilities is as long as 20 meters. He remembers the stats and realizes that he's leveled up. After his last battle with the monster, he feels a lot stronger but must check for himself. Then, Toka starts to think. He thinks about the ruthless goddess that condemned him to his fate. The more he remembers her, the angrier he gets. Even further down his train of thought, he remembers his parents and how badly they treated him. The neighbors couldn't even help him because his parents always seemed to be lurking around. Come to think of it, this isn't his first experience with hell. His entire life has been hell. Toka shrugs it off and is drawn back to reality. He realizes that his paralysis effect is running out of time. Then he has an idea. What if one combines sleep, paralysis, and poison effects? He decides to test it out and it works. This means he can now just stand still and finish off his enemies. As long as they are within his range, with his recent discovery, all the monsters start to look like bonus experience points. His parents, Visis. Toka can't stop thinking about people who don't deserve to live. Since they tried so hard to kill him, he resolves to train harder until he's faster and stronger. He checks the status window after it notifies him that he has leveled up. Looks like his skills are up to level 2 now. Toka ventures deeper into the labyrinth, also called the Ruins of Disposal. He stumbles across a big book which he glances through. Something captures his interest there. It's a page that says, "Beware of the Soul Eater." Could that be some sort of monster? Even without that page, the book seems so beneficial that Toka decides to take it. He asks for permission from the old sage, who would have replied if skeletons could talk or were alive at least. While looking for the exit of the labyrinth, he finds a safe room. It doesn't feel comfortable, but he has no choice. He needs a way out as soon as possible, and he's also running low on food. This place looks like a man-made design structure, unlike the rest of the ruins. Toko wonders just how much time must have passed on the outside. He wouldn't have survived without his skills, no doubt about that. His skills keep growing day by day, and the more they grow, the more the things they can do increase. For example, his sleep paralysis and poison skills can now be used to target multiple opponents at once. As long as he can visualize opponents, he can use his skills on them. The only problem is when they attack through his blind spot. Then again, his instincts seem to be heightened after facing opponents that attack blind spots. Speaking of heightened senses, it was all he could do to dodge an incoming sting from a giant monster scorpion-like tail. It's not just a giant, it's also an undead with rotting flesh. Would his skills even work against this monster? Only one way to find out. It's almost as if he's enjoying this. Meanwhile, outside the ruins, there's one person in particular who misses Toka. Kashima Kobato remembers their good times. She remembers they once took a stray cat to see the vet. Here she confessed to being a weak coward, and Toka cheers her up, saying that being a weak, kind person is much better than being a scary maniac. Kobato is rudely interrupted by Ikasaba Asagi and what looks like her gang. Asagi tells them that S and A ranked heroes can do whatever they want. She suggests that the rest of the class form groups to increase their chances of survival. Of course, she doesn't fancy D-ranked Kashima that much. She just needs her beautiful body to attract boys that would protect them. Quite the plan, I must say. Asagi reveals that she's not trusting the goddess to send them back home. After all, the goddess selfishly abducted the kids without prior notice. She leaves Kashima alone to ponder about Toka, and whether she needs to stop being such a kind coward. Meanwhile, Toka is reading the sage's book back at the ruins. He learns that his name was Angelin Berthrad. He was called the Great Sage by some and Dark Hero by others. He was sent to the ruins because he had become an eyesore to the ruthless Vices. That means that the labyrinth isn't a place to dispose of E-ranks, but also to dispose of those who inconvenience her. This lady is pure evil according to Toka. He sets back out, remembering he always wanted to be a kind person. Yet here he is, killing so many monsters and not caring. He sees a door and concludes that an exit should be close by. He manages to find an exit, but just in front of it is a gigantic head that looks asleep. Toka has played enough games to know that this is usually a trap. He reads the statue's skill, something he learned he could do recently, and found out that it's a very powerful one. So he decides to attack from distance with paralysis. Before he can call out the move, the statue sends a beam that he barely dodges. Wait a minute, this guy is no ordinary statue. He's the Soul Eater. Toka hides in the corner to analyze the situation. Every time he's tried to use his skill, the Soul Eater used his beam first. It's almost as if his moves are being predicted. For sure, the Soul Eater must be the boss of the labyrinth. Since he can't use skills without talking, he contemplates going back and getting stronger first. But that would be difficult because he already wiped out most of the monsters there. Toka briefly contemplates giving up, but immediately he thinks of the ruthless goddess and he changes his mind. The Soul Eater is releasing something that looks like slime from his mouth. Wait a minute, the slime is taking shape. It transforms into all of the victims of the goddess and the Soul Eater. Now that's just emotionally sick. The Soul Eater seems to be enjoying Toka's look of horror as the man looks beaten already. Toka paralyzes them, but he refuses to do any more than that because they're his fellow victims. The slime humans slowly break out of the paralysis and approach the horrified Toka. Toka calls out for help, and as a means of taunting him, the Soul Eater glides toward him, unguarded. Big mistake. Immediately he sees an opening, and Toka paralyzes the Soul Eater and all the slime humans. All his act was a charade, and the cocky Soul Eater fell for it. Toka is far from being broken, and he proves it by releasing poison to the horror of the Soul Eater. It struggles to set itself free from paralysis, but is only exposing itself to extra damage. Toka stays to see the end of it. Once paralysis is about to end, he uses the sleeping skill, just to make sure the Soul Eater stays put. Finally, the system notifies him that he's leveled up. This must mean the Soul Eater is dead. Toka looks on in pity at the entrapped souls he must have hit. Something amazing then happens. The Soul Eater opens its mouth and releases all the entrapped souls. The souls thank Toka for defeating the Soul Eater and other monsters that killed them. He even sees the soul who owned the coat he's currently wearing. He offers Toka some gems which he hid before his death. Toka looks further and sees a man whom he recognizes as Anglin, the Great Sage. He doesn't hear what Anglin tries to say for some reason. Then the souls come together and fade away. They leave with one plea. Please, defeat the goddess. He's not under obligation to grant that plea, but he was going to try anyway. Finally, Toka steps out of the labyrinth and into the sunlight. It's a nostalgic feeling. On that day, a piece of information would spread throughout the continent. In the far northern reaches, home to countless demons, the great demon emperor's armies had begun their march to the south. The cornerstone of the north, the kingdom of Magnar's pride, the great fortress Nightwall has fallen. Each country was forced to plan their countermeasures, and the kingdom of Alien, headed by the goddess Vices, was no exception. A battle is set to begin, and it's made up of rulers, conquerors, fugitives, avengers, and also pawns, just like the ones gathered by the goddess Vices. In the forest, there's a high-speed foot chase going on. A strange woman runs from a group of men. Even with her fast legs, they manage to catch up with her. No surprise there. They are direct descendants of the heroes of old after all. It's a group of 4 that any mercenary would know, the White Walkers. There's the Lash Finebird, called the Fang, Asura, called the Demonic Heavenly Body, Jiobane Sengai, called the Overwhelming Force, and Magat's Bradinus, called the Sword God. The strange runner knows she can't avoid the group for long, so she decides to face them. She invokes the regalia of the spirits, Sylphixia, Feral Benga, and Willow Zega. Armed with the spirits, she is ready to face them. She deduces that their mission is to bring her in alive, especially since they haven't hit any critical points and are holding back. Her stamina is quickly depleting, so she needs to end the battle as soon as possible. She amplifies her 5 senses but immediately starts to feel a strong sense of death. The pressure is too overwhelming and she can't keep up with it. Is this the end of our strange runner? Meanwhile, Toka is in the forest. He reads the book that Anglin left behind, the Encyclopedia on the Forbidden Arts. He already learned a lot from the book. For example, Goddess Vices has a passive skill, the Goddess Disenchantment, which creates a barrier around her that deflects all status ailments without fail. Unfortunately, this means that revenge would be even more difficult than he originally thought. It doesn't put him off though. Another thing he learned is that the success rate of status ailment skills in this world are extremely low, which is probably why the goddess tried to dispose of him. But then why do his skills work every time? What if rank E stands for extra? Maybe he was given those extra gifts because he was chosen. At this point, it's the only theory that makes sense to him. Lastly, in the encyclopedia, there's a scroll titled Spellbook of Incantation, but he can't understand the language. When his class came in, the goddess said that all characters are automatically transformed into Japanese. This must mean that she can't translate this book either. The special book is in the hands of the extra rank man. No, it could just be a coincidence. He then gets up to leave. He has all the time in the world to solve this after all. He doesn't take too many steps before he hears a noise and looks back. It's a group of 5 slimes gathered against just one. How unfair. He remembers that he's yet to check his new skill since defeating the Soul Eater. He checks and sees that part of it is the non-lethal poison release. There's also a partial paralysis release. This would be beneficial if he's fighting to torture and not kill. To test out his new skill set, he uses the fighting slimes as his guinea pig. He activates the non-lethal poison option and they are in serious pain but don't die. Good. He finally deactivates it and the slimes run off. Well, all but one. The slime he saved pulls his shirt to be seen. Pete, it says. He translated it to mean thank you. He sets back out, but the slime holds on to him. Looks like he's just found a companion. Since the little monster doesn't exhibit bloodlust, he allows it to stay. It smartly wraps itself around him like a belt, since monsters can't be brought to town. Monsters have a detection skill. Maybe this relationship could prove beneficial. He calls it Piggymaru because of the sound it makes. The new companion barely takes a couple of steps together when Piggy pulls him back, and just in time. He barely escapes a dagger thrown at him by a strange man. No, it's a group of people. 4 to be precise. Toka isn't whom the White Walkers seek, but they're ready to kill the strange boy in the woods. After all, he might be an accomplice to their target. They threaten Toka to give them the strange runner's location, but he doesn't know whom they refer to. He doesn't want to fight and pleads with them to spare him, saying he doesn't know the woman. The White Walkers don't care if he's telling the truth or not. They decide to play bully and even test out their new weapons. The Sword God commands his dagger to come back to him. He's ready to finish off the stranger with the dagger. Still seeking to avoid a fight, Toka begs the swordsman to let him go. With a smirk, the swordsman refuses, not knowing he just spells his inevitable doom. Toka paralyzes the White Walkers, which is more of a trial as he didn't know if the skill worked on humans. The group is shell-shocked. How does one kid paralyze 4 trained men at the same time? Toka has little time for words. Since they were going to kill him, he returns the favor with poison. With all of them lying dead, Toka realizes that he just killed humans for the first time. Yet he doesn't feel anything. Is it because they were scum or were trying to kill him? Whatever it is, he has no reservations about taking human life now. He picks up their coins. After all, money is needed by the living and not the dead. Then he feels something. It's a huge pressure coming from the direction of the bushes, and Piggymaru feels it too. The White Walkers mention something about a woman. Well, you can't be too careful. He sends Piggymaru to bait her from the other side. With Piggymaru there, the killing intent vanishes and the strange runner cannot detect anyone else there. That's when Toka immediately paralyzes her. He senses that she doesn't have killing intent and asks her if, unlike those guys, she's capable of civilized talk. The strange runner is surprised and relieved. She must have thought she was captured by a White Walker. Toka discloses that he's not from the area. He asks for information about the area and the closest village to it. With the help of the spirits, she can tell that he's not lying. He notices that she can't talk under paralysis, so he frees her mouth. During the conversation, he confirms that she's the one that the White Walkers were after. On the other hand, she's shocked to learn that he encountered and killed the White Walkers. Who is this guy exactly? She insists that they're not enemies, and to prove it, she lets him unmask her. In return, he drops his guard and releases her from paralysis. From his dressing, she guesses he knows a thing or two about magic. She says he can ask anything. and the first thing he does is show her the spellbook. He asks if she can read the language there. She has a horrified look on her face that gives away the answer. She surely knows something about the language and its meaning. Who exactly is this strange woman, and what does she know? He shows her the scroll that the Great Mage had written himself, containing information unknown and out of the reach of the goddess Vysis. He wants to know what this writing says, especially if it's something able to rub the goddess's face in the mud, given that the Great Mage wasn't really on good terms with her all his life. I mean, she did throw him into the ancient ruins area where Toka was disposed of. Unfortunately, after giving a glint of hope as she wore a face that implied she was familiar with the characters, she didn't have a clue how to read, decipher, or explain the scroll. There was something she did know, someone who could read the scroll. There's a woman banished from most of the land for her unknown and otherworldly magic, popularly known as the Forbidden Witch. She should be able to understand the characters in the scroll as she may practice or have dabbled into the same clear magic the Great Mage was disposed of for. The Forbidden Witch lives in the Great Historic Ruins, but getting there will prove quite arduous. Toka's true problem is the fact that he is just a disposed of hero who knows little to nothing about the mappings and terrains of the world he's in. He asks his hostage, well, not for long, to enlighten him on the environment, its pricing system, and how to get to the Great Historic Ruins, unfazed by whatever he would probably face. She briefs him on the maps, currency, and their corresponding worth. She can say all this due to Toka's newly developed skill, partial paralysis, which enables him to free parts of her body. After an informative conversation, he frees her from paralysis and soon heads off to the nearest town called Mirizu with Piggymaru. In Mirizu, a bustling town by the way, he gets the true needs first, food, then shelter, and some new clothes. Yeah, the clothes he had on were roughed up a bit by the White Walkers, those 4 guys he regarded as scum that he took out for wanting to kill him. The food in this world is exceptional, and Toka blesses his taste buds with this new feel until he is satisfied. Before getting to where he's going to lay his head at night, he looks out for information, and there's no better place for gathering information than a bar. At the bar, he gets to know about the heroes and organization of the country's leadership, the different nations, and the alliance against the Demon King. A gist that piqued his interest was one where Goddess Vysis is mentioned, and due to his undying zeal and desire for revenge, wiping the smirk off the goddess's face, he listened carefully as they mentioned the resistance to the Demon King, the undefeated Beauty King's shining army, Magaruno White Wolf Knights, Yodona's nation's holy extermination force, and this country, Uruza's Magic Knights. Naturally, if there's a talk in such a place, the strongest person around is usually mentioned, and it doesn't change here as the people brag about the strongest human around, a Dragon Knight who could hold his own against the Demon King himself in a duel. Dragon Knights are strong to the point that just 5 could take on an entire nation, and this man is one, Sibid Gathard. Since he's gotten the information he needed, the next on the to-do list is getting shelter, and so he heads towards an inn. At first, seeing the ragged up clothes that Toka had on, the innkeeper informs him that all the large and single rooms are booked due to the heavy inflow of heroes and adventurers for recruitment. When Toka drops the money he took from the dead on the counter, the innkeeper, seeing the amount of money, had an instant change of heart, pleading with Toka to lodge with them as long as he pleases. When asked what his name is, Toka answers with an alias, Hattie Shoal. Meanwhile, the ruins investigation unit with its new member head out to survey the ruins like they always do, while simultaneously briefing the new guy on how things work there, and how he shouldn't be extra in whatever he does. Truthfully, it had good pay for a lazy and easy job, and they want to keep it that way. Suddenly, the chief of the unit notices something odd. The crystal they used to detect the presence that makes it out of the ruins didn't change color, which meant something had likely left the ruins. The new guy was excited to check it out and investigate to the last detail, but the chief waved it off like nothing happened, saying the crystal is defective. The new guy then brings up the suggestion of reporting to the higher-ups, but the chief, who wants no extra stress and I'd say is comfortable with his pay, warns and threatens Jim sternly, so he keeps quiet and goes with the flow. In the inn, Toka, or Hattie as we'll refer to him, reads a newspaper of some sort and gets information about the recruitment of people into the investigation unit, and for the exploring of the ruins from the innkeeper. This interests Hattie as he believes the ruins hold magical items and skills that would aid Piggymaru, his improvement, and overall strength, which would be handy in the future. Given how much Piggymaru has saved him and had his back, an upgrade in the slime's strength would be a good addition. Piggymaru is the only and best company he has, and at the same time the best defense regardless. Even though Hattie was able to clear the other ruin and sense kill intent from the other bosses, Piggymaru has been a big help in defense. Defense isn't a conjurer's or mage's strong suit after all, and Hattie is no exception. He had problems with an overwhelming horde of monsters. With all this, he realizes he still needs a partner. To be specific, an attacker to balance the equation, or better put, adapt a formation for fighting. Someone who can buy him enough time when facing very strong opponents. At the town square, a rowdy bunch is waiting for a briefing from the marquis. Just as fusses are bound to be made in large crowds, someone was ready to play this role. Monk Drogody, a self-proclaimed Flash, spots a woman he knows so well. Asarasu Ashrin, a Valkyrie, a warrior elf, who is general of a fallen nation and is now in hiding. It was the woman Hattie, or Toka, saw in the forest that was pursued by the White Walkers. Monk Drogody had asked her out to dinner once, and she refused him, so today he intends to force and most likely bully to accept by threatening to reveal her ears. This woman puts on an interesting act, saying he was probably mistaking her for someone else. Toka, or Hattie, on the other hand, knew it was the elf he saw that day. Monk reached out to her and took off the hood, but to his shock saw normal ears. This made him look stupid and perverted in the eye of the public as they pull him away from her. She then walked over to Hadi, who had sensed her magic nearby. They both acknowledge they notice each other and introductions are made, but with aliases, Mist and Hadi. Hadi tells her it's a fake name, but real names don't matter, which she agrees, glad that he's well-mannered. The Marquis, Great Harkley, finally announces the recruitment, its objectives, and rewards. He's willing to buy any treasure brought from the ruins at a seller's bargain price and at the value the adventurer is comfortable with. The main objective for this exploration is the retrieval of the Dragon Eye Sake Cup, and Great Harkley is ready to give 300 gold coins to whoever gets it. Mist explains that there are a lot of ways to make money from this exploration, aside from killing monsters and gaining the Dragon Eye Sake Cup. Rewards could be earned from maps, outlines of the areas, and information about monsters in the ruins. Most important of all, the Marquis has a hidden goal, one he wants to use effectively. By recruiting random members of the public and adventurers, they sacrifice their lives to get information, valuable information, and the map of the whole area. With this information at their disposal, it will be safer for the Marquis' men to go in and explore without any death. After all this explanation, as they were about to get moving, Mist got weak and almost fell on Hadi. This is due to a lack of sleep as she hasn't slept in a while and her fatigue is ever rising by the second. Hadi urges her to rest before they embark on their journey, but affirms she's good and will catch up soon. In the ruins, Hadi faces off against some monsters some others are finding it difficult to kill. Using the combo paralysis and poison, he clears his way through the levels very easily with Pigamaru on his shoulders. The first monster, a minotaur but quite different from the one he killed back at his disposal area. This one has way less kill intent and danger as it wasn't very intimidating. He tries using his knife to cut open monsters for materials he would need to strengthen Pigamaru, and turns out that unlike before, he very much can. The effortless killing continues and he gets to the 6th floor where a horde of monsters rush at him, but using the same combo, he effortlessly wipes them out. What he finds weird is that these monsters did not exude killing intent or bloodlust as he wasn't able to sense them and needed Pigamaru to detect them. Good thing Pigamaru has an amazing detection skill. Soon enough, Hadi runs into Monk Drogody and a few adventurers plotting against Mist. Fueled by his embarrassment and thirst for revenge, Monk pays the adventurers to capture her and bring her to him. So he makes her wish she never denied him his date or embarrassed him in public. Monk planned to kill her but changed his mind. He ordered they her, and then when he is satisfied with the look of despair in her eyes, they kill her by cutting bits of flesh and feeding the monsters. Hadi is disgusted by this plan and plot of wickedness and decides to treat them like the bad people they are. When his presence is known, Monk threatens to kill him alongside Mist and in a feat of rage and pride decides to attack Hadi. Before they can move an inch, he paralyzes them and leaves them there for the next wave of monsters. A grand scale of the death they designed, destroying them properly. On level 14, he encounters a group of adventurers who beckon him to advise him. They are the Saber Tiger group, and they notice that the monsters on the levels and floors of the area were not dying normal or natural deaths, but were dying in an absurd amount in way. When they appraise the cause of death, they find poison in the monsters which wasn't a safe or normal sign. They advise him to tell other adventurers to leave before it's too late and ask if he wants to join them while leaving. He turns the offer down politely, saying he can't leave friends behind. In actual truth, this weird happening would be Hadi killing the monsters, and he didn't have time to cover up the cause of death or hide the bodies. He also didn't like the attention this might get him, but in this particular case, it's favorable for him as there's no struggle for the Dragon Eye Sake Cup. He keeps exploring till he gets to the level/floor 17, where he sees a dragon statue. Just like the Soul Eater, Pigamaru could sense its kill intent, and before it could attack, Hadi paralyzed and poisoned it, killing it in one attack. The cup is revealed, and as he is about to carry it, he is stopped and ambushed by Mist unintentionally. They both withdrew their weapons when they saw each other. He hands her the cup for his good reason of not standing out, and because that wasn't his main goal, it was a secret passage which he searched for and opened up. Mist feels indebted to him as it was not an item you just get for free. She offers her body and soul to him, but Hadi refuses, as he never wanted a master-slave relationship. She suggests that she follows him through the passage and protects him, and Hadi agrees under some conditions. The first, she would brief him on the conditions of nearby countries. The next is that she doesn't tell the Marquis, keeping this a secret, and the last is she asks no questions about his personal life. They head in together to the unknown, and Mist is curious how he spots her detect's presence. Since they'll be working together, he decides to introduce Pigamaru to her. When she sees the slime, she is surprised and gleefully plays with Pigamaru. Pigamaru is also friendly to her, making her the first human, aside from Hadi, it doesn't attack. I guess ladies always love pets, even pet slime. Soon enough, they find a golden eye monster. This is a sign that the habitat is close by. Mist takes it out in one strike with ease, and Hadi gets to experience what it feels like to have a partner, his dream formation coming true. They continue exploring the underground levels for the unknown treasures that lay hidden. They get to a shut door with a magic orb right in front of it. Luckily, while exploring the ruins he was disposed in, he came across the orb and is familiar with how it works. You pour in magic and a quantity enough to open the door. While he does that, he asks Mist to explain the difference between golden eye monsters and non-golden eye ones. She informs him of a theory made by the great mage, Anglin himself. This supposedly is the reason for his disposal by the goddess. Anglin believes that the monsters who were closer to the source of evil and its power were monsters that had golden eyes. Due to this evil source, their abilities are heightened and their animal instincts turn normal monsters into ferocious beasts. The monsters without golden eyes are the kind that is friendly to humans and are safe to be around. The goddess Vices is also suspected of using GoldenEye monsters, and all this resonated as Toko remembers seeing golden light emanate from the heroes who were S-class, especially Kirihara Takuto, before his disposal. Something is unsettling that might be going on here. He wonders where his classmates are now and how they are surviving and doing. Meanwhile, some heroes from his class were engaged in a battle against the skeleton boss and its minions in the Alien Kingdom. They faced the skeletons ferociously while singing self-praises of how strong they are and gaining experience points. Kirihara took on the skeletons and did most of the fighting for his team, while Oyamada Shoga, an A-class hero, backed him up, killing skeletons and racking up points as well. Another key hero is Takao Usuki, blessed with the skill of lightning. She takes on a couple of skeletons at long range with lightning shots. Her elder sister, Takao Hijiri, an S-class hero who is smarter and a freethinker, cautions her, saying it's not only about getting strong or earning points, it's about understanding the system and beating it eventually. She said this because she doubts the goddess will send them back to the normal world, if this all ends, with emphasis on if. They analyzed the 4 groups that heroes from their class have fallen into. Kirihara's group, which comprises Kirihara as the leader, Oyadama as a support, and a bunch of other B-class or above heroes who sing praises for both of them. The Ikusaba group, comprising of Ikusaba, a B-class hero as the leader, and a bunch of girls who work well under her. The Yasu group, containing Yasu and heroes rejected by the Kirihara and Ikusaba groups. Then there's the Sogo group, led by Sogo Ayaka, an S-class hero, the girl who stood up to the goddess for Toko's sake. Meanwhile, Sogo is trying desperately to level up as she has the dying urge to get stronger and protect the weak as she had promised the goddess. Earlier, she had a conversation with the goddess who was eager to dispose of heroes below the S-class, and anyone weak or unable to fight in the coming war with the Demon Lord. Sogo promises to fight in their stead and protect them so far as the goddess doesn't harm them. In the bid to save the disposable heroes, she steals her zeal to get stronger and prevent another Toka from being disposed of, as she was not strong enough to save him then. Sogo manages to level up a couple of times, but still doesn't gain a unique skill even though she's killing as many monsters as the others were. She manages to kill skeleton monsters around her, but doesn't expect the turn of events that comes next. In an instant, Sakura, a member of her team, had her hand cut off by the skeleton boss. Kashima, another member, thought quickly and rushed over to stop the bleeding, while Sogo contemplates her strength and if she could indeed defeat the skeleton boss in front of her. She asks the two to move to somewhere safe so that she take care of the monster in front of them, sending shivers down their spine. Turning to face her grand opponent, she steals her resolve to save others and decides to face it. Sogo recalls her grandmother's teaching, saying she wasn't lucky for being born into this generation, or at this time, but is lucky because she was born with talent. A bit ironic for someone without a unique skill in the other world. Anyway, back to the fight. They remember a technique that is sure to bring down this giant monster, Kisoryu. This technique involves passing energy through your body and the weapon the user is wielding. This way, it magnifies the impact of any strike landed or parried. Using this technique, she summons Helix Spear Collapsing Star. Instead of blocking the attack, she parried it, weakening the skeleton in one strike. Sakura drags her out of the way, saving her from a draconic blast that Kirihara had sent without warning, which finishes off the monster, but would have done a lot of damage to Sogo if she wasn't saved. At the goddess's office in the Alien Kingdom, a meeting is arranged between her and the goddess. Vices informs her that she has restored Sakura's hand with the skill Heal. The goddess also commends her for her active participation and role in the fight, though she asks Sogo why she didn't or doesn't work with Kirihara as she expected S-class heroes to stick together. Sogo explains that she wouldn't work well with Kirihara. Vices informs her of the representative meeting and her responsibility, which Sogo agrees and assures she'll do. The goddess gives a fake smile and approval as Sogo leaves, but it turns sour a second after, showing true intentions. Meanwhile, back at the Great Historic Ruins, Hattie tries to talk Mist into sleeping as her fatigue levels have risen so high. After much admonishing, she finally decides to lie down but doesn't sleep, forcing Hattie to use the skill, Sleep. As she sleeps off, the transformation magic she used to hide her true appearance starts to fade away, showing off her true form, as the Valkyrie elf Asurasu Ashrin. Siras wakes up and is shocked by the form she sees. She's now exposed and has some explaining to do. Luckily for her, he has no intention of exposing her secret. Toka explains his side of the story, how he felt concerned for her and had to make her fall asleep. Falling asleep made her genjutsu fade, as it needs to be consciously controlled. She tells Toka how she borrows the power of the spirits by offering them her desire to sleep. She can change her appearance with the help of the light spirit, tell if someone is lying with the help of the wind spirits, strengthen her weapons with the help of the ice spirits, and can generate armor and equipment by combining all of them. She had to change her appearance because the White Walkers were after her. Toka notices that she doesn't bother to revert to her previous form. This must mean she trusts him now, and so he lets out a secret of his own. My real name is Toka Memori. He says he wouldn't tell if she doesn't. He also assures her that they are equal. She isn't his servant and shouldn't be so humble around him. Now that she's well rested, they hope she can fight at full strength. Toka and Saras didn't need to wait so long for a test. They soon encountered the Skeleton King, the boss of the ruins. Saras uses the spirit's power to increase her danger detection, and then she bravely goes in to face the monster. With the Skeleton King occupied with Serasu, Toka can get close to it and utilizes paralysis and poison skills. Once that happens, the monster is no match for them. Oh, that's another thing Serasu didn't know about him. He asks her not to tell anyone about his unique skills. With the Skeleton King dealt with, Toka can get what he came for. a powder of silver bones to help Piggymaru level up. Piggy also draws his attention to a strange egg which Toka takes with him. With that, the dungeon is conquered. A little while later, Toka is at his lodge when Sarasu comes to meet him. She has successfully submitted the Dragon's Eye sake cup since Toka insisted that he didn't want it. She was asked to come for the reward the next day. She was also offered accommodation at the mansion but declined for obvious reasons. Speaking of accommodation, Toka has a surprise for her. He got an extra room for Sarasu so she can sleep well. She wants to reject it but is tempted by the idea of a good shower after a long day. Sometime later, Sarasu is taking advantage of the accommodation by using the showers. Elves don't have strong body odor, but this is still helpful. She thinks back to her time in the Nea Holy Kingdom. She was so beautiful and every man desired her. That's not something she liked, so she never truly interacted with men. She thinks back to what prompted her to leave the kingdom. The princess, Cattleya, asked her to leave the kingdom because she cannot protect her any longer. For someone that is the captain of the Holy Knights, she should be the one giving protection. But the princess tells her that the Bakosu kingdom will conquer the country soon. Then she wouldn't be able to protect Saras from the men desiring her beauty. Now under her bed covers, Saras can't help but think about the similarities between Cattleya and Toka. They are completely different people, but something about them feels so similar. Since she escorted him to the dungeon, Toka offers to reward Saras. It's a stone of high value, or at least he thinks so. Saras recognizes it to be an Azure Dragon stone, with an even higher value than the Dragon's Eye sake cup. She refuses to accept the reward because of its high value. In reality, Toka got the stone from the victims in the abandoned historic ruins. An Azure Dragon stone is produced by an Azure Dragon, which is a legendary creature of frightening strength level. A little while later, Saras leaves to collect her reward for the cup. The companions agree to meet up by 1 o'clock, as she should be done collecting the reward by then. She leaves for Marquis' mansion while he sets out to do his task. Using the materials gotten from the Skeleton King, he seeks to formulate an enhancement drug for Piggymaru. After a little while of mixing and preparing, the drug is ready for testing. Piggy reacts so violently to the drug being given that it damages most of the room they stay in. Toka can only get off the house owner's back when he promises to pay for damages. On the bright side, the experiment is a success according to the book. All that remains is a battlefield test. It's well past the agreed time for Saras's return, and Toka starts to get worried. Did something happen to her? Has she taken advantage of his kindness and now left him? Both he and Piggy cast that thought aside almost immediately. Then again, he gave her the Azure Dragon stone in the morning. She claimed to know how to convert the stone to money. Maybe she selfishly wants it all to herself. He sets out to begin his investigation. Before he leaves, he overhears people discussing the woman who found the Dragon's Eye sake cup. That's Saras. He eavesdrops on the conversation and finds out that her identity was truly exposed. According to them, a magician famous for breaking genjutsu happened to be in the mansion. He broke Saras's genjutsu and everyone noticed that she had the exact face of the previous head of the Holy Knights. The men say that Saras managed to escape to the Dark Forest, but a huge bounty is placed on her head. Before he leaves for the Dark Forest, Toka hears something that would send shivers down the spine of the ordinary man. The Marquis sent his mercenaries to capture Saras. This group is not made up of ordinary knights though. They're rumored to be the strongest knights in the world, the Black Dragon Knights. The Black Dragon Knights are said to be strong because of their abilities, but even more so because they are led by the man in the white armor, Civet Gatland, the strongest human. As Saras Ashrin runs for her life in the Dark Forest, she can't believe her misfortune. A magician famous for breaking genjutsu just had to be at the mansion. She also thinks about Toka and Piggy and how they must think she betrayed their trust. But even more importantly, she has the Black Dragon Knights in hot pursuit. As expected from such a famous group, she can't shake them off. She has no choice but to face them. The Black Dragon Knights are the world's strongest knights. The ones who command the knights are the mighty 5 Dragon Warriors. Together with the 5 Dragon Warriors, the Hero Slayers are very popular throughout the mainland, but there's one who stands above them all. He makes the Black Dragon Knights the strongest in the world. He isn't an illegitimate child of the gods. He isn't one of the heroic blood's lineage, nor is he a hero from another world. He is simply a human being who has reached the top and become the strongest. He's rumored to be as strong as an entire country's military force. He is humanity's strongest, Civet Gatland. The Black Dragon Knights are split into different teams while searching for Saras. Team Oben spots their target in the forest. They have orders to kill her, but Civet is intrigued by how strong she could be. Meanwhile, Saras can sense that she's being watched. Even if she manages to defeat the rest, she knows that she is no match for Civet and that makes her tremble. But she doesn't give up. With her sword, she brings down 1 knight and then 2. She is a little worn out, so she doesn't sense an incoming knight in time. She can't dodge the attack, but manages to block it and prevent a critical hit. This knight is Kizun, one of the 5 Dragon Warriors and the vice captain of Team Oben. Kizun would be beatable on a normal day, but Saras is unable to use the light spirit power for now, due to the genjutsu being forcefully broken. This means that her weapon and energy level are much lower than normal. As a result, Kizun toys with her in the fight and is finished in no time. With the beautiful warrior helplessly tied to the ground, Kizun cannot control his lustful desires and attempts to forcefully lay with her. Already weakened to her bones, Saras battles in vain to save her dignity, but Kizun overpowers her. All hope is nearly lost, but someone from the bushes suddenly paralyzes Kizun. It's way past the time we promised to meet, he says. Thankfully, he made it just in time. Toka frees Saras, who is thankful but even more worried. He knows that these are the Dragon Knights of the Bakuosu Kingdom, and he knows just how dangerous they are. Why did he come here? Toka combines Kizun's paralysis with non-lethal poisoning and then responds to Saras. He tells her about how the news of her near capture and escape spread all over town, and how he had to rescue her since she didn't betray him. But rescuing her means that he'd also be chased by the Dragon Knights, so she insists that he saves himself and leaves. Toka has an idea. Saras could change to a completely different face with her genjutsu. Nice idea, Smarty, if only she didn't think of it herself. Oh wait, she did. She tells him about not being able to use the genjutsu for now, since it was thrown into confusion by the genjutsu breaking magician. Saras returns the Azure Dragon Stone to Toka as she can't be his bodyguard anymore. Toka confesses that it's a lot of trouble. The warrior elf directs him to places where he could hire mercenaries as guards. She even offers to teach him how to convert the Dragon Stone to money. With a smirk on his face, Toka refuses the offer. By a whole lot of trouble, he meant that getting a better bodyguard is a whole lot of trouble. He insists to stay with her. Toka suggests that she negotiates and hides with the Witch of Taboos. It makes perfect sense since the witch's location is not even on the map. It also makes a lot of sense from Toka's perspective. If he needs to negotiate with the witch, Saras' wind spirit could discern if he's being lied to. He also brings up the monster area as a possible hiding place. Since all these places are more convenient than facing the Black Dragon Knights, they decide to continue their companionship. Saras is blown away by how kind and selfless Toka is to her. He says she reminds him of his aunt who, together with his uncle, took care of him after his parents abandoned him. Abandoning her right now would feel very much like abandoning his aunt when she needs him. There's no way he could do that. They remember that Kizun and his Black Dragon are still under attack from Toka's poison. The Black Dragon is dead, but thanks to the non-lethal option, Kizun is only in severe pain. Toka uses the opportunity to get more information from him. The search for information goes both ways. During the conversation, Toka reveals that he killed Kizun's Oben teammates while coming. Kizun refuses to believe, but the evidence is right there in its full misery. Even with this knowledge, the knight remains cocky. He riles Saras up by telling her about the women of the country and what he did with them. Kizun tries his best to pass the endurance test, but it's a lasting one. Finally, he gives up and is ready to talk. He barely says anything when a spear divides him into two from the waist below. Toka realizes that the attack came from a long distance, even farther than his skill range. That's the reason he didn't sense the attack. Crap, it's him, Civic Gatland. King Ortora Stramius is the Holy King of the Holy Nea Kingdom. As has been the pattern in recent times, the king wakes up from a nightmare, and it's about the same person, Saras Ashran. The king recalls how she left the capital as instructed by his daughter. It proved to be the correct decision, as the Nea eventually fell to Bakuo's kingdom. Saras is safe from the goddess and knights, so why does this feel like the wrong decision? He remembers Saras and her desirable physical characteristics. He wanted to have her. He wants to have her. He regrets not having had carnal knowledge of her, even if it had to be by force. There's no way he would let another man defile her when he couldn't. He concludes that if he can't have her, nobody should, and so she has to die. Saras Ashran refuses to believe it when Civic Gatland informs her that her death was ordered by King Ortora. He was such a nice man, how is this even possible? The Dragon Knight insists that the king offered them fortunes and jewelry just to kill her. The Dragon Knights discuss amongst themselves how to kill her. Some of them insist that the beautiful elf should be passed around the subordinates before killing her. How cruel. But the king specifically requested for her corpse with her purity intact. He even claimed that he would know if there were another man sent on her. Now that's creepy. If Saras can't tell when people are lying, why is she getting worked up by these guys? Could it mean that they're telling the truth? Toka's thoughts are interrupted by an offer from the Dragon Knights. The Knights propose a battle between Civet and Saras to decide her fate. Civet is just intrigued by how strong she could be, especially after learning about her spiritual powers. He looks forward to the fight, or at least he did before he sighted Toka. The Knights assume that Toka is no more than a porter hired by the elf, but Civet Garland knows better. The pair haven't exchanged blows yet, but Toka already has a strong feeling that this man is much more dangerous than the Soul Eater. He needs to handle this carefully, otherwise he might lose his life. He throws Civet off with a smirk on his face and then asks for a conversation with them. The warriors are locked in dialogue. Toka reveals that his name is Hadi Skull, but Civet can tell that he's lying. The Dragon Knight senses that Toka has something up his sleeves, so Toka just goes straight to the point. All Civet wants is an opponent that can satisfy him in battle. Toka shrewdly tries to measure his strength by asking about battles with the Great Demon Emperor and Alion's goddess. Civet reveals that he can't battle with the goddess because it could risk the diplomacy between both countries. Then again, the heroes summoned by the goddess from the other world intrigue him. Because of their divine blessings, one of them might be able to get to his level and become his arch-rival. There it is, the opening Toka is looking for. He steps up and proposes that he'd be Civet's ultimate opponent. Wait, what? He baits Civet by revealing his true name, and that he's one of the heroes from the other world. About 10 odd years between the Holy Nea Kingdom and Bakuo's kingdom, there was a problem in which golden-eyed monsters were pouring out from the historic ruins of the two kingdoms' borders. The kingdoms decided to deal with this problem together and sent their armies. Human-faced monsters were also identified, and the battle was expected to cause huge casualties. When the armies got to the ruins, they saw a boy battling in the middle of a mountain made of monsters' corpses.
This boy looked more entertained than stressed. With every move, he sent heads of monsters flying. The armies almost mistook him for a demon that was told of in folklore. The monsters started to stay away from the boy, and the armies took advantage of the monster's confusion and wiped out the rest of the army. The boy looked around and screamed angrily. He complained that the monsters didn't confront him as they should have. The boy wanted an enemy. Eventually, he became the leader of the Black Dragon Knights, as he believed he would meet someone powerful there. He is the strongest abnormality of the human race. He is Civet Gartland. Civet is surprised that Toka is a hero from another world, as is Saras. Civet cannot help but smile. After all, he might have finally found his match. Then again, what is a hero doing in this location? Toka recalls that Civet can see through his lies, so he must be really smart about his response. Toka responds that he has a special situation and acts differently because of the goddess. He's not lying, Civet can tell. Civet questions him further, asking whether he received special orders from the goddess to act separately from other heroes. He replies that he's of a special rank, which is why he's allowed to act separately. Again, he's not lying. The Black Dragon Knight can barely hide his excitement about possibly fighting a hero specially recognized by the goddess. That's when Toka shows his cards. He asks for some time to get stronger before facing Civet. At the moment, he's no match for Civet, but if he's given some time, he promises to get stronger and kill Civet. This man is really interesting. Civet asks how he plans to get stronger, and he says that he's heading to the Golden Ice monster area to level up. Civet asks a few more questions, to which Toka smartly responds. Civet is intrigued by the possibility. But what if Toka intends to run away? How would he find this interesting warrior? Well, he concludes that the goddess wouldn't let Toka go missing, especially as she recognized him as a special warrior. No need to fret. As for Toka, he has scores to settle with the goddess, so he'll surely be there. Civet agrees to free the companions on these terms. His fellow knights are not happy with the decision, but can't do anything about it. He calls out to Saras and instructs her to protect Toka with her life until he's battle ready. He doesn't miss the opportunity to rile her up, as he threatens her with Princess Cattleya, her former master. He even informs her that the princess has a wedding coming up with the Black Dragon Knight's captain. Enough has been said already, and the Dragon Knights turn to take their leave. Toka breathes a heavy sigh of relief. He just survived humanity's strongest, and Saras didn't die too. And even more, he was able to get close enough to put Civet in his skill range. With his guard down and back turned, it's now or never. Toka almost successfully casts his skill when Civet notices that something is wrong. He sees Toka doing something and draws his sword to stop him. Did Toka's plan just fail by a few seconds? He put all of Civet's subordinates under the skill, stopping their movement and harming them if they tried to force it. All the others find it hard to move, but not Civet Garland, as he struggles to take a step while bearing the multiplying pain being inflicted by the skill. He moved quite the distance to surprise Toka, as even the soul leader he fought and defeated at the abandoned ruins couldn't move, and quite frankly, that was his strongest and toughest opponent yet. The soul leader and Civet did share similarities, as Toka used fear to deceive the soul leader and also deceived Civet with something similar, weakness. His strength didn't last long, as soon enough, Civet dropped to his knees, weakened from the compiled pain from paralysis and the second skill Toka used, poison. The others were groaning in pain, soon to lose consciousness and meet death and defeat. Immediately, Civet hit the ground and something unusual happened. A flare went up to indicate that there were problems at this encounter. Originally, the flares were meant for members of the Kingdom's Knighthood or the other Black Dragon Knights to use as a signal to Civet that someone strong enough to defeat a Black Dragon Knight had been encountered. Given that such a person is considered a threat, they wouldn't be allowed to escape by killing one knight. Hence, Civet appears at the point of battle to destroy any such opponent. Since Civet is the one down and gradually dying, the Black Dragon Knights show up almost immediately, as Civet had probably asked them to chill somewhere while he handles the situation. Talk about a considerate and charismatic leader. Back to the story, the Black Dragon Knights show up, and Civet, who surprisingly has enough energy to shout out orders them to kill Toka and Saras, but from a distance, as he had experienced firsthand what Toka can do at close range. The fact Civet could even shout at this point was very impressive, just to be expected from the man nicknamed Humanity's Strongest. Toka has solutions to the range problem for paralysis and poison skills, which is he combines with Piggymaru. The enhancement effect from borrowing power from monsters enhances his skills. On connecting with Piggymaru, wearing the slime-like outer coating, his skills increase as gel sprouts from Piggymaru containing the skill itself. Upon contact with the target, it initiates Toka's attack with an amplified effect. Though this form uses a lot of MP and mental strength, it is an effective means he will use to attack the knights and the dragons they flew on. Next, he faces the knights with Piggymaru on his shoulders, sending attacks at the knights. They try to cut off the slime, but even though they did, the point or surface of the slime is where his skill activates. Hence, there's no way out for the knights, and with this, Toka plans to destroy them all. Civet realizes the Black Dragons have come to an end. A painful story. Let's delve into Civet's background and life for a bit here. After the subjugation of a golden-eyed monster by Civet at a very young age, he amazed the onlookers who took the opportunity he gave them to wipe out the remainder of the monsters. Civet was invited by the king himself to the nation, and on accepting that invitation, he was soon adopted by a noble family. This family was the Gartland, headed by Earl Gartland. This head loved war and the idea of strength and victory, so hearing about Civet made him excited enough to ask the king that Civet becomes his foster son. Things turned out great as Civet became a member of the noble society, and it wasn't all about strength for this young boy. Another quality that made him stand out was how quickly he adapted and learned the mannerisms and customs of the nobles. He loved and valued his foster family and continued being a recognized member of the Bakuo's kingdom. This wasn't enough as Civet stood out yet again in the eye of the public. Being the strongest around and recommended by the king, he joined the Black Dragons, and none of the members, the leader, and his son could hold their own against Civet. With this, he was made the leader of the Black Dragon Knights. Another occasion occurred when Civet made a name for himself in his country and beyond. The Bakuo's kingdom had a revolt led by the king's younger brother, a duke with better popularity and a majority of the support from the people. With 8 generals backing him, the revolt began and people took sides. Even members of the Black Dragon Knights sided with the duke, as it's only logical to side with the winning side, so it seemed. Civet, alongside the Gartland family and former leader of the Black Dragon Knights, sided with the king. During this war, Civet single-handedly killed all the generals and ended the whole war all by himself by killing the king's younger brother. Yet again, in search of something or someone that could match his strength or likely overpower him, he journeyed into the ruins and the kingdom in search of a monstrosity that could prove a hard time. 2 months passed and no sign of Civet. The masses had given up their celebrated hero, and the king regretted allowing him to go into the ruins. 2 weeks later, Civet, humanity's strongest, resurfaced with treasures as souvenirs to the king, but with a gloomy face. He had realized he was too strong and life and battle had gotten boring. As fate would have it, to aid his nefarious plans for the Black Dragon Knights, he unlocks a couple of new abnormal status skills that enable him to handle the knights in the cruelest way. The sleep skill increases to level 3 and new ones like Berserk, Dark, and Freeze. All skills that he would test out, excluding the last so it doesn't affect the combo skill of Paralysis and Poison. He was running low on MP pretty fast thanks to the connection with Pigemaru, and it would prove difficult if Civet were to break out of the skill. Toka couldn't deny the fact that he wouldn't be able to face Civet one-on-one if that were the case. He instructs Ceres to watch over Civet and the other paralyzed underlings, so he could focus on the battle with the Black Dragon Knights. Well, right now, I wouldn't call it a battle, because he blocks their eyesight for a short time frame with the skill Dark. Next, he uses the Paralysis and Poison combo as usual, then the Berserk skill. The skill makes the affected struggle to move against their own will, enhancing the pain inflicted and the effect of paralysis, thereby killing the affected faster. When all the knights and the dragons were down, he killed the dragon Gartland rode on, gaining points in the process. For heroes in this world, level up points didn't come from killing humans, but dragons did drag a lot of experience points. Ceres, who had a front row seat to all the action with little to zero participation, was in awe of how enhanced his skill was when he connected to Pigemaru. She was also surprised that he was a hero, and a special one at that, given his case. They both get to find out in this discussion how similar they were as Toka affirms that he wouldn't return her to the goddess Visis, who, by the way, was hunting her and thinks Toka is dead. Borderline, they both hate the goddess with their guts. He also compliments her for staying alert and helping him concentrate, even though she feels deep down she didn't do much. I kinda feel so too. They talk about a reward and Ceres feels unworthy of it, till she does something deserving. All this talk was happening simultaneously with the knights and Civet waiting for Death's final call. Most have consciousness, but the truly strong of the strong, Civet held on to his for a little longer. I guess it's one of the downsides of murder by poisoning. Minds could be changed during the wait. Some might chicken out, but not Toka. Soon enough, Civet's life nears its end and he asks what Toka is as he never expected such a sudden death. Toka bids him farewell as he loses consciousness little by little till he embraces the afterlife. He reminisces about a young Civet who trained to be stronger beyond limits. After watching Civet die, they journey most likely to the Golden Eye area to find more monsters to level up with. They then talk about the princess Ceres had left behind as well as the plans that the goddess had for the princess. Turns out Ceres loved the princess so much and Toka could tell. She asked Toka who he planned on carrying his revenge on, and he said with bloodlust and rage in his eyes, the goddess Visis. Meanwhile, in Albion at the ancient dragon ruins of the nation, the heroes have to face golden-eyed monsters to get more points and level up. As she promised the goddess, she protected and watched over the low class B and below, encouraging them to focus on defending and protecting themselves, leaving all killing monsters to her. If they had strength left to spare, they could join in buying her time and aiding her killings. She vowed to get strong enough to face the Demon King as soon as possible so all her classmates would go home, because she doesn't want anyone dying. But for now, she'll protect as much as she can, leaving no room for another death like Toka that she couldn't save. Borderline, these group members were weak and to be disposed of by the princess, so they are relieved and love the fact that they are part of Sugo's team and can easily protect themselves, especially for one girl, Suo. Sugo asked her if she could help protect the others as she's the only brave one in the bunch, even though her rank and class don't correlate. While Sugo tries to liven the spirits of her team members, the Yasu group walks in, and Yasu, its leader, went on to say derogatory things about the weak members of Sugo's team. He asks Sugo why she would want to team up with such weak classmates, as heroes below rank A are called white heroes, which are best put as mob characters or mob heroes. He then proposes they join forces together, which Sugo strongly refuses as she feels they would not work well together. After a short while, a wave of monsters shows up and this gives Yasu a great opportunity to show off his skills. He didn't waste any time demonstrating what an A-class hero could do. Using his special ability, Sword Eye of Black Flames, he obliterates the monsters and does this quite easily. It wasn't just Yasu that came with the big guns, as Sugo observed. There were the Takao sisters, who were S-class and A-class heroes, the elder and younger sister respectively. One sister with the ability to use lightning, and the other with the ability to make clean, concise, and precise cuts left a whole wave of monsters divided into two. One section with charred monsters, and the other with cleanly cut up monster corpses. All was done by the sisters without breaking a sweat, all because they had unique abilities. This was the one thing Sugo wanted that she so lacked, despite her hunting and killing monsters. This made her feel sad and left behind, more accurately described as being not strong enough to protect all she wanted. She watched the sisters from behind a wall, and not for long, the elder sister noticed her presence. She asked Sugo to show herself, remarking that she doesn't bite. Hearing this and sensing a warm invitation, Sugo comes out to converse with the sisters. They sense she's not looking okay and ask to show they care. Little did Sugo know that her worry for the lack of unique skill was evidently written on her face. The younger sister, Itsuki, asks her to take better care of herself and hurries off as her elder sister calls. Before she leaves, she hints to Sugo that her elder sister likes her. Sugo, wanting to confirm this, tries to ask but is interrupted by an answer, yes, from Ijiri affirming that she did have a fancy for Sugo. The group gets to the exit and meets a surprise, Oyamada fighting off monsters and showing off his power. The others compare him to a beast with bloodlust for killing. Seeing the B-class and below warriors, he takes the same route that Yasu took, insulting and asking Sugo why she brought weak members to hunt monsters with the Kirihara group. Sugo yet again defends her classmates from the insults, hoping they all drop the power high soon. In an instant, the crowd is joined by Kirihara and a monster he was holding captive, torturing it so it screams to draw out even more monsters. After continuing this in what I have to admit looks like a very clever plan, Oyamada points out that it most likely wouldn't work, causing him to separate the monster's head from its body. A new addition, appearances, and faces never end as a new member joins the heroes. A strange woman with cat ears, instead of the goddess Vices herself. She introduces herself as the goddess's representative. She also informs them that she would be in charge of their safe return to the capital and their progression to the next phase of development, in the stead of the goddess and by her order. Oyamada, seeing her little structure and petite outline, bursts into a peal of insulting laughter, asking in a belittling manner if she truly thought she could order around heroes that are stronger than her. The representative, pissed at the foul mouth, accepts Oyamada's challenge as an invitation to fight, and decides to show him and the others why the goddess put her in charge. She calls out his name and remarks that he is the one with the foul mouth. This caused Oyamada to ask for her name, and trust me, I understand why he laughed. Her name was Nyantan Kikipat. Yeah, Oyamada wasn't wrong for thinking her name sounded like a cat. Kikipat decides to take this greeting and warning more seriously, and in one strike, charges at him, weakening him and causing him to fall to the ground. After undoubtedly showing how strong she is, she proceeded to tell them they'll be journeying to the royal capital for the next phase in preparation to defeat the Demon Lord. A few days ago, the goddess summoned Nyantan to supervise the heroes in her stead, as she would be busy due to the new movements the Demon Lord was making. She also chose Nyantan because of the loyalty she had to the goddess. To prove and reiterate the loyalty she had, the goddess asks her to lick her feet, which Nyantan did without hesitation. While in the ceremony of loyalty and reverence, a messenger came in with urgent news, apologizing for disrupting the goddess's meeting. On the go-ahead of the goddess, he informs her of the news and she began to think about Civet and how he would have contributed to the development of the heroes she intends to train. Soon her beautiful idea pops up and she dishes out orders to the messenger. He's to gather the 4 revered saints of the Alien Kingdom, the dragon killer from Uruza, the saber tiger group Toka ran into a while back, and Civet and the 5 dragon warriors. Nyantan informs the heroes that their dreaded and trying moments are near approaching, as they are likely to face the Demon Lord sooner than expected. Meanwhile, Toka still journeys to the Golden-Eyed Monster area with his trusted company, Seras and Pigimaru. He enlightens her more on the dismissal as a hero, where the goddess disposed of him. Turns out the abandoned ruins were just directly underneath the forest they were traveling, and he also tells her about the origin of the Azure Dragonstone and how he got it, which is from the corpse of the great mage himself, Anglin. This left Seras to wonder why such an accomplished and great man would be disposed of. Toka presses on with his plans and goals for revenge, saying he would destroy anything that stood in the way of him and his revenge, even if it meant killing people to get to the goddess. He understood that this might not fall in line with Seras' moral code or conduct, so he proceeds to apologize. Surprisingly, Seras is unbothered about his thirst for revenge and offers her full body and power towards his cause. Owing it to the fact that she has no loyalty or relevance to the Holy King and that he saved her from the White Walkers and the Dragon Warriors, she felt indebted to Toka and gave him her undivided loyalty. She held him in high esteem as a savior, high enough to want to call him a title so she doesn't mistakenly address him by his name. They arrive at a village in the middle of a festival, and soon enough, Toka is invited by one of the townsmen to join in on the fun. Before he does that, he checks out the new options his skill, Sleep, has, resulting from the increase to level 3. He also managed to test out Freeze on his journey there. Back to the village and his festival, Toka picks a mask he's interested in. The townsman provides him with the story behind the mask. It's inspired by the tales of the King of Flies. The King of Flies was a demon of ancient times who had an absurdly strong army and was the harbinger of chaos. The king and his subordinates are popular from the way they died, despite being demons and evil. Toka takes a liking to this mask and the mask of the king's subordinates, as he wasn't supporting the goddess and kind of is aligned to the demonic side. After all, he does want the goddess to grovel and be devastated and full of despair. When in the changing room as directed by the masked seller, he thinks of what he would answer if anyone were to ask what he did. After a good thought process, he settled with the King of Flies mercenary corps, posing as a mercenary. Meanwhile, in the Magnar Kingdom, there's a round table meeting behind closed doors, where the world leaders, the White Wolf King of Magnar, the Queen of Janata, the Magister King of Aruza, and Alien's Armor King, including the goddess, sit to discuss plans for the brewing war against the Demon Lord. They also wonder who would have annihilated the Black Dragon Knights and even humanity's strongest. The goddess isn't sure of the Magnar army, which is at the forefront of the battle. She asked the Mad Emperor, Falcon Dotane, a distinguished Alien Knight, if she could count on him when the time comes.